Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. Today's clip is part 2 of a 4-part interview we did with Chuck Mead and Jay McDowell, BR5-49. In this clip, they talk about actually started playing at a club that wasn't a club. It was a clothing store, and it remained so. Even while they were playing, they built a stage, started selling beer out of a cooler. It became Robert's Western Wear. BR5-49 became part of their permanent sign. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Again, BR5-49. Welcome back to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage with Chuck Mead and Jay McDowell. So we were just talking about how the beginnings of BR5-49 were sliding into a not so safe and prestigious gig on Broadway back in the day when Broadway was not what it is today. So how did that turn?
Well, before I moved here, I read this book by Philip Norman called Shout, about the Beatles. And it was a biography of the Beatles, and they talked about their time in Hamburg, Germany, and I could really see the parallels of Lower Broadway and the Reeperbahn, and how it was a different show every night. And I don't mean musically. It was, you had tourists, you had truck drivers, you had all sorts of people, but it was just wide open, and it was a great place. Now again, before I'm in the band, they get a steady drummer, and musically everything gets tight, and it's great. And it was a great place to bring people from out of town, or to bring your musician friends, meet up after gigs. We'd end up down on Lower Broadway, and it was just weird enough to be great. And that was what was so enticing to me about it. And when Shaw showed up, the drummer, he stayed with Chuck for a while. So I meet Shaw. I'm excited because they've got a steady drummer. I was looking for a place to live. Shaw was
definitely looking for a place to live.
So we moved in together and got a house in East Nashville. Not because East Nashville was the hip new place, but because that was the only place we could afford. It wasn't that hip at the time, but
We used to say the home of the gun.
Yeah.
Yep. But so yeah, I'm just going down there watching them play. And Chuck mentioned about canvassing for Greenpeace. He was a natural at hitting up tourists for tips, and that became part of the show. That was the shtick of, he had all these different raps about, how to give us money, basically. And so I fell for that many times as a patron.
Yes, you were a very good tipper.
So how did
Very nice tipper,
so
Jay.
tell everybody how you ended up in the band. Be honest.
I went to see them at 328 Performance Hall, which was a bigger venue back then. They were opening for Nick Lowe.
It was the first gig we played out of Roberts. We opened up for Nick Lowe.
And that was really exciting to see them in a different setting, and with a nice big PA and big stage, and I was excited to see Nick Lowe. And I remember getting backstage, and that was the first time I ever met Nick Lowe, and he was really, really kind, and
He was great.
really nice. And so again, they'd been looking for an upright bass player. The only players we knew in town all had other gigs. They had even gotten together and played with a few of them, but Johnny Cash's bass player and Emmylou Harris's bass player, and they all had real gigs. They weren't going to play for tips, down on Lower Broadway. So it was that night at the Nick Lowe show that they said, "Jay, would you consider getting a bass?" And I remember, I think I just had enough beer that night to say, yeah, I'll do that. So then it was like, okay, I got to find an upright bass, which was not easy. I started calling around all the guitar shops and music shops here in Nashville to no avail, and I started checking other cities, and Huntsville and Memphis and Atlanta, and there was one bass for sale in Nashville that was $8,500, and I was not prepared to spend $8,500. That wasn't even an option. But I found a bass just outside of Knoxville in Ciderville, Tennessee. It was $999, and Chuck and Shaw drove me in
Road trip.
He had a minivan. I just had a little car, so we drove there. I sold a couple guitar amps and borrowed some money and got, scared up $999. And we went down and bought the bass, and
Silvertone or something like that, or
it was a Englehart.
oh, that's not bad. That's,
Industry standard.
It's currently residing in the Musicians Hall of Fame here in Nashville. But went down and got the bass. When they had an electric bass player, they had made the decision that they were going to give him 2 weeks notice. So I mentally was thinking, okay, I got 2 weeks to learn this instrument. So I started pulling out my own record collection and playing. It was great. I'd grown up as a guitarist. I was hearing my own records brand new again. I had never thought about what the bass player was doing. So listening to Buddy Holly records, Bill Haley records, and Gene Vincent records, Elvis records, Dwayne Eddy records. Well, tell them about the band meeting you had with the bass player.
It didn't go well. He was a really good musician, but we kept going, man. Bones Becker was his name, and he was a sweetheart of a guy and fun to hang out with and a great musician. And we kept saying, we want an upright bass player, we want that hillbilly sound, mostly because Gary's roommate, this guy named Donnie Herron, who was this incredible fiddle player from West Virginia, said that he would quit the group that he was in and come down and play with us if we got an upright bass player. And so we had a meeting with Bones, and he said he couldn't play it because it would hurt his hands. And it's like,
Which is true.
But it is true. I mean, he bled for the band.
It's true.
God bless
It's
him.
true.
I've seen him. It was he didn't quite put a curse on us, but like his wife did, I think.
But the 2 week notice turned into,
Yeah, 2 week nurse turned into
I'm out.
So, and luckily we told him like after the gig on Saturday. So Jay had gotten the bass on the Wednesday or Thursday before. We told him on Saturday. So then he says, I'm out. I'm not going to 2 weeks. I don't need 2 weeks. So my Monday gig at Tootsie's with Shaw playing the snare, which we were Dos Cajones, and on Mondays and Sundays. All of a sudden, Jay's now playing bass on a Monday night, and it just happens to be really, really packed, and like Joe Ely was in the audience.
It was jumping
I mean,
in the
like
deep
it
end of the
was
pool.
huge. Mondays and Sundays were really good for us at Tootsie's, and we kind of built a crowd, just us two, aside from the BR thing. So Jay's playing his first bass gig. Like, okay, here we go. And he just stood up there and played it like a man, and it sounded great. And so Wednesday, when we picked up BR, everybody thought we were crazy. Bones is a good bass player. What are you doing? You have a good thing going on. But we're like, we want an upright bass. And Jay got one. And everybody was shaking their heads. But then all of a sudden, the guy that everybody had seen in the audience for like months and months and months, drinking and yelling and partying, now, suddenly he's up on stage, and it makes it even more likable because kind of people already know him, the crowd. So
it does change the whole presence of the band, though, with the stand-up.
well, both visually and musically,
Right.
because there's a whole lot of air going on. When you're doing this,
And you can't stand up on top of a P bass very easy.
no. It's easier to carry in the
Yeah.
car.
Much easier. I see why everybody switched to electric bass in 1951 or whatever. Whenever that happened, it was universal. Everybody.
Well, you
because-
remember, when Scotty talked about how Bill's bass flew off the
Right.
top of Elvis's car, and went off
Right.
into the darkness, and they found it, and it didn't just in one piece, amazingly. But, so how did I mean, because I remember Broadway being actually worse than what you guys said. I mean, I remember there being peep shows down there with those cameras like in high school.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
and
and-
real girls
And,
too.
yeah, oh yeah. And
But
then,
we were all working together.
and
It was the
we get through
nightlife.
playing at Opryland Hotel, and then we'd close down the Nashville Palace, and then there was these after-hour clubs in downtown that you had to go to the door and they'd open up a little thing and they'd look at you and we'd stay there till daylight. You know, I mean, it was.
Wasn't it great?
It was great.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was
But
fantastic.
how did y'all? But y'all really kind of turned that, I think, right? Just by the bringing in a lot of.
I just want to go on record by saying that I don't want to take credit for the pedal taverns at all.
But I will say from being down there just as a patron and watching them and watching it evolve slowly, but evolving from that place where nobody felt safe to fast forward to now it's families and certainly family friendly and but seeing that slow evolution happen, it definitely it was obvious that there was something going on. Now the arena was being built, what they called it, the Sommet Center, now it's the Bridgestone
Yeah.
Arena. That was being built right at that time. So I know the city wanted to clean that area up. They if they're going to have a big arena down there. Now when I'm 22 and drinking down there, I wasn't thinking about that. At my age now, I see that the city needs to have that place kind of cleaned up because they're going to start having a hockey team.
Oh, they saw it as
concerts.
the new Bourbon Street, which it turned
Right,
into.
right.
But there was talk about tearing down all the buildings across the street. And the tornado in '98 kind of did part of that for
Right.
them.
There was talk of tearing down the Ryman. That was
It was, but we wanted to soak up that hillbilly soul, and that's, to us, that's where that still existed. And, we knew that we were doing something right when it stopped being just brave German tourists and started being townies. People from Nashville started hanging out
Right.
there and hipsters and stuff. And it really, it seems like it was a long time, but really it was a matter of months that this all happened between 94 and 95.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it plodded along. But Robert, to his credit, we would see him, instead of the money going up his nose like most club owners or, whatever, the ones that I'd come in contact with, it went back into the club. It would be improvements, all of a sudden there's a new bar. Oh, wow, he built a new stage. Now there's a stage.
There's a balcony.
There's a balcony. Oh, yeah, it used to be Robert's office. Now it's a balcony, the Johnny Horton balcony.
Yeah, there was.
And we were doing, but what we were doing was different from everybody else on the street. We were doing Ray Price and Hank Williams and Johnny Horton, and most people were just doing either what was kind of on the radio, and you had your own songs. Everybody had their own songs because it was a songwriting town. From the very beginning, very first night that we ever played together, we always played our own songs. But at that point, do you have 4.5 hours of your own material?
Right.
I mean, so we played just what we knew, which was all that old rock and roll, and then when
But y'all
Jay
had
got,
successfully created an image that was different.
it
too.
was but it was like that's what we knew. That the whole point was that wasn't made up. But people kept saying, I mean, even when we got like a big record deal, they thought we were all made up, especially in Austin. These guys just manufactured, but it wasn't. It was so organic, and if you were there, you could see how you can't make up what happened.
And
That's
I feel
the
like
deal.
we presented Nashville's past back to Nashville in a way that we said, hey, we love this, this is cool. And so many Nashvillians, I feel like, looked at it like, oh, sweep that under the rug. Hee-haw, that's something they weren't proud of. And we were coming from other cities, coming to Nashville saying, no, this is the cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We love Buck Owens and we love Minnie Pearl and we want to champion it. And same with the way we dressed. We were excited to get Western wear and find these old suits and
Vintage clothes.
Vintage
I was
clothing.
basically wearing what I wore in my parents' band.
Right.
Some of the same stuff, some of the same neckties I wore, you know.
Hey, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about how you guys turned into a for real band, how you got your name, and how you got your record contract. So when we come back, more about BR5-49.